Recording here.
Good to
All
see you,
right.
Maggie. Just want to say.
All right. So we're recording. Okay, that's good. So, guys, I tell you what, we're going to start. We have a small, wonderful group. That's fine. So you can all see my screen. Okay, is that good? Okay, so let's start. So as Maggie mentioned, this is a little bit about what Colorado looks like from our farm on a November sunset. And if I look to the right now, I'm seeing the Rockies with some snow on it. So, all right. So we're going to debunk the myth of the finish line. We're going to explore a pathway for later creativity in life. We're going to learn not to fear the neutral zone and begin to chart your third act of life, and that is learner benefits. And this is designed for anybody who's in a transition stage. I'm particular into that because of the kind of the retirement thing going on. All right. Here's the agenda. This is the myth of the finish line, the creative peak in later life. Why the creative peak? Thing called crystallized intelligence, which you might be familiar with, that I kind of looked into. My own later in life creativity, the transition into refiring, questions to inspire refiring, a bit of advice so far, and an added bonus: how a heart attack can change almost everything. Stay tuned. All right. All right. So I did a blog recently. You might have gotten this, and I turned 70 on Thanksgiving last year. And I did all the things you're supposed to do. I had my physical, saw my cardiologist, met my financial planner, checked my state. I had a wonderful party and stuff. And people started asking me, "Are you retired? Are you going to retire?" All right. By most appearances, it looks that way. I'm a professor emeritus. I collect Social Security. I even get senior discounts at restaurants if I mention them. I try not to mention them. It's like, but it works, right? But I go back to what something Ruth Noller said, my mentor, many years ago, and I'm good, and Sue Keller Mathers is a real fan. When Ruth retired, Ruth is a renowned mathematician. She was the second computer programmer in the world. She worked on the Mark I computer at Harvard. She said, "I have not retired, I am refired." And I just love that. Not retired, but refired. So I took that on. And so the question that comes around oftentimes, doesn't creativity belong to the young? I'm talking to you folks, so you're going to know the answer to this. I mean, Paul McCartney did Love Me Do. A hit came out when he was 22, okay? Taylor Swift's first album was she was 16 when she debuted it. Steve Jobs was 22, Steve Wozniak 26 when they began Apple computers. Yeah, great. So creativity does not belong only to the young. That's a myth and it needs to go. All right. So let's take a look here. Laura Ingalls Wilder published her first Little House book at 65 and created a foundational series of America's children's literature at 65. Frank Lloyd Wright designed Falling Water at 67 and kept creating well past 70. Okay. Hi, Giovanni. Welcome. Turn on your camera so we can see your smiling face. All right. Rita Levi-Montalcini changed medicine when she discovered nerve growth factor that revealed how nerve cells grow, develop, and repair, and she won the Nobel Prize at 77. Harlan Sanders at 62 franchised Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's still one of the world's most recognizable brands. Georgia O'Keeffe produced her later art in her later 60s and 70s. Jane Goodall changed her global conservation efforts at age 55. Jane, your favorite artist, thank you. Yeah. And my friend, the extraordinary guitarist Bobby LaBelle, is still teaching and regularly performing at 70. Bobby looks great. Right? Paul McCartney is still touring at 83. Amazing. So, why so much creativity later in life? And as I was thinking about this and putting the presentation together, I did some research on this and I came across the concept of crystallized intelligence. And the crystallized intelligence advantage I found refers to the edge that we gain as we accumulate knowledge, experience, and pattern recognition over time. Now, psychologists distinguish between two major types of intelligence. First is fluid intelligence. That's the ability to quickly solve novel problems and process new information. The other is crystallized intelligence, which is the ability to use accumulated knowledge, wisdom, vocabulary, experience, and judgment. And this was first developed by Raymond Cattell. Cattell did a lot of work in psychology and expanded by John Horn. And their research showed that while fluid intelligence tends to peak in early adulthood and gradually decline, Crystallized intelligence often continues to grow well into later life, and that's the advantage, right? So here's what crystallized intelligence looks like later in real life. A rich vocabulary and communication skills. You only get that by hanging around on this planet for a while. Deep domain expertise, better judgment in complex situations, pattern recognition built from decades of experience, contextual wisdom, knowing not just what works, but when and why that works. Now, it's the executive who sees the risk before the spreadsheet shows it, the physician who can recognize a rare condition from subtle clues, the musician who interprets a piece with emotional depth impossible at age 20, and in our business, the creative problem-solving facilitator who can intuitively sense the right move to make in a session. We can't explain it. It's just this is where we go based on all of these years of experience. This feels right. Let's go in this direction. Now, the aging advantage. Now, while processing speed may slow, knowledge, depth, verbal ability, and judgment frequently improve into the 60s and 70s and sometimes beyond. And this helps explain why many authors produce their most nuanced work later in life. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Why Supreme Court justices often serve at advanced ages, seasoned entrepreneurs can pivot more wisely than first-time founders. But it's not raw speed that wins, it's integrated experience. Integrated experience. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, when he wrote his book Creativity, Flow and the Psychology of Discovery and Invention, Csikszentmihalyi only interviewed people over the age of 60 who were recognized in their field as having a significant contribution. I didn't know this until I started to get into this. Over the age of 60, he made a few exceptions. One was 58, one was 59. So age is not the finish line. It can be the starting line. And let me give you some personal examples, and then we're going to play with it a little bit. So when Creating a Flash came out, I was so delighted when David said that Chris, you folks are using this as a big part of that. I was 64 when that was released. At 65, we produced a series on Open Sesame, which is a 9-part series on innovation. If you go to the Open Sesame e-learning platform, it's in 15 languages. We did that when I hit 65. Also at 65, I did my first TEDx talk, TEDx Omaha, on clarifying the problems. This was really kind of wild, guys, because it was during the pandemic, and we shot it in my living room against a black screen. All right, because you couldn't go there. Right? 66, we re-released Why Didn't I Think of That? My first book. 67, I did Solve the Real Problem. Um, and 68, I did my second TEDx talk, Chris, that you were talking about, called The Secret to Better Brainstorming. That was actually on stage in Omaha. Second time we did that, and that was delight. It was a lot of work doing a TEDx talk. Wonderfully done. Wonderful experience. So here's my experience around this. At the end of 2024, I was getting on an airplane. I just sent my daughter and son-in-law down in Charleston, and I sat down and I realized that over the last 5 years, I'd done about 20 major creative projects. And so I was like, but I have to tell you, last year, 2025, hasn't been easy for me, and it's been a real year of transition. And guys, I didn't see it coming, all right? So when we talk about transitions, we go to the master of transitions, William Bridges, who wrote his wonderful book, his seminal book called Making Sense of Life's Changes. If you haven't picked up this book, you probably have it right over there, Veronica. It's the Bible. Yeah, it's I still have a yellow copy of it when it first came out. It's extraordinary. And what Bridges, so the story, let's look backstory on William Bridges. William Bridges in the late 70s, I want to say, Victoria, and you guys can leave your microphones on if you want to talk. He left his position as, I think, a college instructor, moved up to Northern California, started kind of a new life up there, and loved to do writing and stuff. And so he started to do these workshops. There were kind of writing workshops, but then it turned into people talking about going through transitions in life. And this is what formed his basis for his theory and his model. And Transitions has now expanded into 3 or 4 more books, and his work has been absolutely extraordinary. It was really, really helpful. And what I found really helpful for this is to talk about the transition model. And so transitions begin with an ending. Something is over, grieving the loss of the familiar. So you have a death, a retirement, losing a job, divorce, moving to a different place. And then what begins to happen is you don't begin again. There's this thing called the neutral zone. and it can be really uncomfortable. But what I've found is that there's great creative work going on at the unconscious level. We're not seeing it happening. We're certainly not feeling it happening, but there's stuff going on over there. And then there's the new beginning, where you're no longer thinking about what was, but you're starting to build what's next. Here's another little model that he has, and he talks about productivity during transition and time. And so productivity, you see the productivity is in the U curve there. So the endings of productivity goes down is low under here in the transition zone. So the feelings are you're confused, you're depressed, you're numb, you're disoriented, all right? The new beginnings, the excitement, the commitment comes up. And there's wonderful work on this, not only in Bridges' work, but other work out there as well. And it ties in beautifully for the work that we do with creative problem solving. So I just wrote this morning as I was watching Chris, you, and Dr. Yates's speech, and this came to me. When we talk about the new beginning, we talk about not looking backwards at what was, but looking forward at what might be. So not looking backward at what was, but looking forward at what might be. And we all live in that world. We live in that world of future vision, creating what might be, possibilities. Yeah, yes, not running away, but toward it. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So if you're currently uncomfortable and you're pretty sure you might be in a transition, you're in the neutral zone. Okay. But you can learn to love the neutral zone. But unfortunately, I can't give you any answers. Right. But what I can do is I can give you some questions. All right. So let's consider some questions. So this is from my latest book, Solve the Real Problem. And I was able to to do some wonderful research on this stuff. Came across a book by Stuart Firestien, not related, called Ignorance, How It Drives Science. And I love what Stuart has to say about questions. And we go into this in a whole creative process. Questions are more relevant than answers. Questions are bigger than answers. And one good question can give rise to several layers of answers, can inspire decades-long searches for solutions, can generate whole new fields of inquiry, and can prompt changes in entrenched thinking. Answers, on the other hand, often end the process. And Chris, I think you found this as you talked about this morning when you worked with ChatGPT. It wants to give you answers. It ends the discovery process. Here's the answer. Here's the answer. Here's the answer. Okay. So let's do this. Let's kind of play around with this just a little bit. So get out a paper and pen or open a document, and we're going to think about some questions for your future. So wherever you're at whatever stage of life you're in, um, we're going to play around with some questions about your future, about what you might want to create. So I'm going to give you a series of questions. I'm going to read you the questions. I'm going to give you the whole list. Now you can flip around through the list, but I'm going to kind of pace you through the questions. And I'll put on a little music behind that. And we're not going to share this, but we will talk about the process afterwards and see what we came up with. And just play around with it a little bit. So paper and pen, open a document, and here we go. So while you're in the neutral zone, I'd like you to consider some questions. I'm going to put a little music here, and you don't have to write down the question. You'll have copies of this. I'll also show you how to get this in a audio version. And so let me put on a little music here, and let's. There we go. Hear the music? Got the music? Okay, great. So I'm going to just read you these questions, and just jot down whatever comes to mind. And I'm going to take about a minute or so a question. And so don't worry about the questions. Just kind of play around with the answers. Just this is a chance to just like take a breath in, play around, think a little bit, try some stuff out. So the first question is, what are some things that you've done lately that you'd like to do better? What are some things you've done lately that you'd like to do better? Next question. What sorts of challenges might be on your mind? What sorts of challenges might be on your mind? What do you wish worked better? What do you wish worked better? Who's been on your mind lately? Who has been on your mind lately? What are their names? Or if you want to trick yourself, you can just use their initials. Who's been on your mind? And we don't share this with anybody. Who's been on your mind? And why? Why have these folks been on your mind lately? Why have these folks been on your mind lately? What's your concern or opportunity associated with the folks on your mind lately? And Veronica, I'll try and adjust that music for you. Couple more questions. What are some objectives you'd like to meet? What are some objectives you'd like to meet? And now I'd like to just have you put your mind on scan and just kind of look around your world. What sorts of opportunities might be on your mind? What sorts of opportunities might be on your mind? And this might be something you've read online, you've talked to someone about that you said, boy, that seems interesting, or I'd like to get involved with that, or there's sort of a little flicker of a flame there. What sorts of opportunities might be in your world that you might like to take advantage of? What sort of opportunities might be on your mind? Just two more questions. One of the nice things about creativity and the imagination is that you can move through time. So I'd like you to imagine it's March 20, 2027. What are some goals, some dreams, some visions you'd like to create or begin on between now and 1 year from today? What are some goals, some dreams, some visions you'd like to create or begin on between now and 1 year from today? And the final question. I've just given each one of you a magic wand, and any wishes in relation to any aspects of your life can come true. What might some of those ideal goals or some of those ideal wishes be? Any wishes in relation to any aspects of your life can come true. What might some of those ideal goals or some of those ideal wishes be? And you get more than three. Okay, that was an abrupt cutoff there. Okay, let's just see what we got here. All right. So just open up your mics for a moment and let's just have a brief little discussion here. And I'm going to kind of tell you how this came about and how to continue on with this. But open up your mics. Who'd be willing to share? Did you get some insights? What did you notice? What do we got? So open up your mics. Let's just talk for a minute. Insights, comments, reactions. What do we got?
I can go first
Yeah,
and
please.
get the energy started.
Thank you.
Well, I know this from experience being a coach, but I'm not always on the receiving side of
Oh, isn't
things.
that wonderful to be on that
Yes, it's
side? Don't you
wonderful.
love that?
But the opportunity to slow down and actually think about these
Yeah,
things, I think most people don't take that time or recognize that they need it. So that's one of the first things that really impacted me.
thank you.
And then as the questions were going on, one of the things I started to, at least for myself, recognize was the some of the visions for the future. I was teasing out which of these things are within my control and which of these things are not. But with the magic wand idea, to be able to think about an aspiration and why that matters to me. So
Yeah.
I know that's just from my own work, getting in alignment with what you value can dictate the actions that you take, even if you don't consciously connect those two later. And so that was really lovely
Oh,
because
good.
there's some things that I cannot control, but I have
Oh.
wishes.
Yeah. Well, Valerie, a couple of things around this, and I'm going to give you a resource that you can, Veronica, I'm sorry, Veronica, a couple of things around this. I'm going to give you a resource that you can use on and on with this because this is part of another program. Let me do a little backstory quick on this. As Gerard mentioned, Kristen Peterson is marvelous at recruiting people for these things. So I did a blog, the last blog I think I did, and if you want to get my blogs, Chris, I think you'll get my blogs. Just go to Roger Firestien. Yeah, Maggie, you're getting them. And I talked about the whole refired concept. And Kristen Peterson said, why don't you do a thing like this for C? And I kind of went back and forth and back and forth. And I said, well, why not? I'll try it out and experiment with it. But the thing that this is a part of is a whole future visioning thing. And the interesting thing is when you it lines up with your values, that's when you begin to really move on them. So great stuff. And I'll maybe tell a little backstory for that in a minute. But Maggie, over to you and over to Chris. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I can jump in here.
Great.
Um, I found it interesting. I think my creativity ideator brain kind of hopped in there and said, slow
Yeah,
down a minute.
that's okay. Yeah, yeah.
Because some of the kind of the earlier questions and sitting with kind of what I wish I did better. And I was kind of almost the opposite of Veronica here, where it was like I'm very future focused. I'm
Mhm.
very kind of wanting
Yeah.
to rush to the thing already being built as opposed to building. And so I'm recognizing like I need to work on not, trying to control so much. And
Mhm.
so as I kind of got through the questions a bit more, especially when it became the question about what do I want in 1 year? Well, I've just told myself, stop worrying about the future. And so I was I was just trying to meander just a little bit through it, and I found that I just had a bunch of very disconnected ideas that were coming up. And
Okay.
at first I was like, what do they mean? And something came up and it was just like middle school, because my son is starting middle school next
Uh-huh.
year. And at first I was trying to place it, like, what does that mean exactly? And so I told myself, just write it down. Maybe you'll know later what it's all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of went through the process that way of like trying not to pull at every thread and connect it,
Okay.
make sense of it. It was just put it down. It'll make sense, maybe, or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Yeah. Great, Maggie. Chris, over to you real quick. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can I say that to synthesize this? Because I do love questions. Um, Maybe I'm going to follow up with what you said, Veronica. It takes time um to strategize versus tactics.
Mm.
So I just reminded myself that focus more on uh, I'm sure you've heard this, Firestien, focus more on the business than in the business. So more overview thinking than just getting stuck in people pleasing and
Okay.
reacting.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that is a challenge that I came from this experiences to
Beautiful.
right figuring that out. Yeah.
We'll hit that. Super. Okay, good. Couple of quick things that I'm looking at our time here. We will end right on time. Interesting thing about this. Let me see if this. Okay, good. Um, so this is part of a program that I did years ago, and it's an audio program. It's on my website. Just go to rogerfirestein.com audio. And this is essentially a piece of that workshop. And so we actually take you through this whole process again, and you can listen to it as often as you like. It's right there. It's free. It's downloadable. Um, and so I've been doing work in the whole area of future visioning since like the early 1980s. And as I was putting this together, it was like, okay, well, this is pretty similar to what I've been doing back then, but now we're looking at a different stage of life here. But the interesting thing about this is I've had the experience. I went through it as Veronica's been. It was like to be on the other side. And I made sort of a list of things from this. And this might happen to you. You might put this list away, and 4, 5 years from now, you might find that list in a file that said C 2026, and you'll pull it out. Yeah, Maggie's nodding her head. And you would be amazed at the number of things that you wrote down on that list that have actually happened, they've transpired, you've made happen, or that are no longer important. And we'll talk about the no longer important in just a second. So that's the extraordinary thing. It's just about writing the power of vision. Robert Fritz has a wonderful book called The Path of Least Resistance, early book in the 70s. And he talks about the thing that moves us in the direction of our vision is choice. And every day you have a choice to move in the direction of your vision or your current reality. Okay, so this is available for you. Okay, so let's go back to this age thing. Okay, so let's stop seeing age as a depleting resource and seeing it as a refined tool because your greatest work might not be behind you. It might just be waiting for a new creative question. And that was the thing that happened with me, guys. I didn't write for probably 10 or 15 years. And in my 60s, I'm cranking out like crazy. It was the time I had the time, the resources, and the fire to do it, right? So let's consider this creative question, right? Chris, to your point, what is really important? Okay. All right. So here's a story. Maggie, you'll recognize this. This is your neighbor. This is the Denver International Airport. Like to call it the Denver Intergalactic Airport. All right. I'm in Colorado right now, and I've been going back and forth. And on March 4th, as I'm walking up the jetway on Denver International Airport, all of a sudden I get this heavy weight in my chest, this weight across the back. My wonderful Apple Watch says I'm running about 140 to 150 beats per minute. My blood pressure is through the roof. And bottom line, later that day, I checked into the Greeley Hospital in the emergency room. This is 39 years to the day that I defended my dissertation. The diagnosis was I had a heart attack. Yeah. So, and I felt something coming on a couple of weeks before, and so I went in. By the way, everything's fine. They went through. They did a catheterization. There's no problem with the heart or anything like that. Just a little AFib. We'll get that fixed when we come back. All right? But I got to spend a night in the hospital. Came back the next day. The next morning, got to go back again because the pulse was up. The next day, Saturday, back for dealing with blood pressure. So glad my sister was here. We're fine now. Okay, medication, get this fixed. But from my experience now, everybody kind of has these life-changing things going on, and this is kind of a recent one. Question is, what's really important, all right? So I can tell you what isn't, okay? The number of books I've written or the clients I've worked with, that's not important, okay? How many views of my TEDx talk? I like it, but it's not important. Okay? How many languages my work has been translated to? It's great, but it's not important. And here's the big kicker. How many followers do I have on LinkedIn? Who cares? All right. All right. So what was I doing? Why did I obsess about that stuff? Why was I so stressed about that stuff? Well, I have a very good dear friend. And so now, as best as I can, I'm moving forward without the baggage from the past. And I have a very good friend that helped me with this. All right. My good colleague and friend, Dr. Larry Kiley, we were talking about this recently. Larry's out in California. We've been friends for probably 30 plus years. Larry and I has Larry has this written above her computer. She says, "The reality I live in my head, is any one of an infinite number of possibilities. The question is then, which one shall I choose? The reality I live in is one of an infinite number of possibilities. Thank you, Chris. The question is then, which one should I choose?" And as Larias often does in our conversations, she whacks me on the side of the head. She says, "Which one are you going to choose?" So moving forward, I choose what's important. I get to choose what's important. I get to choose. And the fact is, there is no box that we're in. And we all know that. We're in that practice that says we're in no box, all right? Because there's an infinite number of possibilities for what we think is real, for what we think is important. There is an infinite number of possibilities for what we think is real, for what we think is important. Thanks, Lorraine. Okay, just questions, comments, what's on your mind? Let's open it up for a little bit and then we'll close off. So questions, comments, things I can help you with. What's on your mind? What do we got?
Well, I'm just
Everybody.
glad that you're feeling better.
So am I. It was quite the experience. Yeah. So thank goodness my sister is here. She's been terrific taking us back and forth and everything. So, but yeah, it was a bit unexpected. So, but yeah, so a little lifestyle changes, that's for sure. So thanks. But those things those are wake-up calls. And as I've talked to my friends about, it's a wake-up call. So yeah, Chris, go ahead. Thanks, Veronica. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, yeah, glad you're better. I mean, that
Thank you.
is
Yeah.
a scary one. I I, I don't know if you've seen these, if anyone's seen these. It seems that they're keep popping up on my channel, or not channel, but YouTube, of people who record themselves on the mistakes I made in life. Don't do this, and they're much older in life,
Yeah.
right? And these videos, here's what I learned, 50 or
Yeah.
60 years on this planet. And I wonder if it's a common pattern, and just what are your thoughts on it,
I
Firestien,
think it
where
is.
as we get later in life, um, and I don't know if it's where this division is, where we realize what's really most important, and why we get caught up in this, on the journey of what's not so important, but then later in life it's like, wait a minute, that's what's most important. So any thoughts on that? Because that
Well,
seems to be a common pattern.
yeah.
And then there's these scary health, and so we just, so it seems to be a common thing. And so I guess what I'm getting at is,
Mhm.
how can one then um, have that realization? Because I feel like I'm so bombarded by society's
Right, right.
capitalism, and maybe like even for like a male and this, I got to
Oh God,
drive this,
yeah,
all
yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah.
and the need of significance and wanting to feel special, and so, but and achieve. So any thoughts on that?
I'm just going to go back to what Larry says, and
Yeah.
so that there's an infinite number of possibilities for what we think is real, what we think is important. It's us that decides what that reality is, and I think this probably is even more appropriate. Um, and Chris, I'm not special about this. I mean, this happened fortuitously, or not fortuitous, for this session to kind of blend it in. And like, well, let's talk about this. And so, but this was really, once again, Larry and her wisdom. We decide the reality we're going to live in up here because yes, we're bombarded with it all the time. Dan Pink, I think, came out with something. Um,
Oh,
he's
the power of
yeah,
regret.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that one, and they wrote this piece. There's 10 things that you don't have to do. I'm 61. Things I learned in 40 years. It's a little posting on LinkedIn. I copied it off and gave it to my daughter and son-in-law. It's like a lot of stuff that's just not important. So, if is that helpful? I mean, it's really we have the agency to choose the how we want to live in the infinite number of possibilities of how we choose to think about our life and to live in our life right here. And we're all creative problem solving folks, man. That's our gift. That's our superpower that we have that, 99.9% of the folks in the world don't have. So that help, Chris? Is that a starter? Yeah. Maggie,
Yeah, I mean,
you're
just to follow up, thank you, is that I guess I mean, I don't want to go too off
oh, go
field
ahead.
here,
Yeah,
is
sure.
that what I feel like at this stage, what I'm realizing is that for that reality to happen, I mean, because I know I'm in it, I'm in like the water, so to
Yeah.
speak. But I just know that body over mind, and I think Maggie, I mean, with your presentation, it's just uh, like I have to exercise and do something so physical uh, for my mind to be good, because I can get so stuck in the cognitive,
Yeah.
right? And so it
Yeah.
just for me to have that reality, it's body over mind. I have to consistently remind myself that. And but it's still like you're in it. So it's like, how can I because I can't be completely an island, you
No,
know?
no, you can't.
But and then yeah, so
Well,
anyways, I just
sorry.
for me
Maggie,
yeah, for me
I'm
to
gonna
get
come
to
to
the
Maggie
reality,
and
it's
then
like body
yeah.
over mind.
Yeah. And then the other
Yeah.
thing is too, I have a good friend that says, stay in the question. It's all about questions. Stay in the
Right, to
question.
change your
Stay in the
focus.
question. Stay in the
Yeah.
question. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be answered. Stay in the question. No clarify stage. Yeah. Maggie, over to you, and then we'll
Yeah.
wrap it. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, thank you, Dr. Firestein. This is
Well,
really timely for me
oh,
because
good.
not to make it terrible, but I actually did lose my mom to a heart attack about a year
Sorry.
and a half ago.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you're okay.
Thanks. Thanks.
But it is an absolute reckoning.
Yeah.
And to see at the beginning of this presentation here, where you showed the graph, and I've definitely been in the trough. I've been
Oh, yeah.
in after something like that happens,
Oof.
you recalibrate everything.
Yeah.
And I guess kind of to Chris's point here a little bit. I am working on a creative self-leadership framework, and it's
Hmm.
all coming out of my mother's death and
Wow.
how to how to transition my life into this next phase.
Hmm.
And so much of it has been forcing myself to stay in the trough because I know, and I couldn't put the words to it until you did just today, but I know that that's where all the integration's happening. That's where I'm shedding the past.
Yeah.
That's where clarity from the future is coming. And that's where, like Chris, according to my workshop that I did yesterday, that's where I've known that the body matters so much because life exists in the body. Everything we do exists in the body, not in the mind, not in
Yeah.
the whatever we imagine. Um, and so to just to kind of wrap it up here, because I know we're on time,
Okay.
um, I it has been, yes, a definite deliberate decision, and I'd be curious to know what you think about this, a deliberate decision to sit in the trough, to sit in the I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to sit
Yeah.
here.
Okay. Veronica, do you want to jump on that? And then I'll say something, we'll end. Yeah, good.
Sure. So I don't know, Chris, if you are feeling like the logic of it is not working or what might be, but I work with a lot of people who are very logically minded, analytical, and also very creative. And so one of the things that I'll bring up in those contexts is that I mean, when they look at how we see, literally what our eyes can focus on, it's a pinprick compared to, and when our brains just fill in the rest. When we read, we basically skip words. We extrapolate and we create the story around it. And even our memory, when you remember something, you're remembering the memory of it, and then you remember the memory of that, and so it gets distorted over time. And so when you think about Larie's quote here,
Yeah.
really the story that you're telling yourself is really just the story that you've created. When somebody cuts you off in traffic, you can get mad at them because they're being an asshole, or you can say, you know what, they're rushing to the hospital.
Yeah.
You don't know anyway, so might as well pick the one that makes you not feel like you're just angry at the
Yeah.
world. So, you know, there's some choices that you make in how you interpret your own story, and I'll leave it at that.
Veronica, thanks. Maggie, back over to you. That whole trough, that whole neutral zone, um, is what having experienced that a couple of times, and I think I'm coming on the outside of it now. Um, it is really uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me, but there's a lot of stuff that's going on down underneath. So, take that.
Well,
Guys, thank
thank
you.
you for that validation. Because yeah,
You're
just sitting here
very,
going, I just
very
have,
welcome. It's like, what's going on? What's going on?
yeah.
Then it comes up. Yeah. So, Veronica, Chris, Maggie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for participating. I hope it was valuable for you. So, have a great rest of the conference. Okay. And Maggie, I'm just up the road from you.
I'm
Okay.
just down the road, sir. Be good to see you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Happy spring.
Thank you.